Hello, welcome to Staring Down the Storm, Autism Advocacy in America. I'm your host, Tabitha Ziegler.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I've got a great guest here today. Rocky, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. Tabitha, thank you so much for having me. My name is Rocky Roggio. I'm the director of 1946, the Mistranslation that shifted culture, which you may or may not have seen. I am the homosexuality and the Bible girl. I made that. Yes, I'm the one that made that documentary. And if you haven't seen it, it's about the first time the word homosexual appeared in the Bible. We have the evidence it's a mistranslation. And so we examine how when people misuse ancient text, whether you're a Christian or not, how it plays out in our real reality. And so it's a conversational, academic, journalistic, relational movie that I think everybody should watch. But I'm more than just that. I'm a filmmaker, but I'm also a wife, newly wife to my lovely wife, Diana, and live with her in London, where she's British and Italian. And so I've now have a visa to live here in the UK, and we have a cat, Ruben. And now I find myself kind of doing this full time, like working on dismantling misinformation and disinformation around the Bible. And I've met so many people around the world, have had the amazing opportunity to, through the film, just meet some amazing people who, like yourself, who are doing some amazing work. And I like to cook for fun, and we drink the mocha coffee. You know, the mocha that you put on the stove and exactly. So,
Yeah. So we like to do the mugs here. So I've also got mine. So tell us about your mug.
Well, actually, this mug is just incidental that I made a little mocha right before today. So just a single shot. And, they come in different sizes. And according to my wife, the smallest one is the best. So she still has the small one every day. Me coming from America, I'm getting used to our 20-ounce coffees that we get, that's mainly just water, and I graduated to an Americano, and now I do the 2-shot espresso one. So usually my mug says silence, please. But today I find this it's a collection from actually her grandmother's collection from Italy. Yeah. And so we are fortunate enough to have this beautiful collection, and I actually like this flower. There's like 6 different flowers, but this one, the yellow one, is nice. I like it. Yellow's a very calming, peaceful color. I don't know. What do you think?
I like it. Well, I'm real big on supporting everything environment. And as you know, I'm from a farm, and we actually have something in common. Well, we have more than a few things in common, but we're both from Indiana, I found out.
I was born in Indiana, Hammond, Indiana, so I think there's a song, Hammond, Indiana. I won't bore anybody with if you know it, you know it.
Right. Right. But I think that's significant because as I was talking to you off camera, I find that Indiana, for some reason, is always like the bedrock of the bullshit, especially whenever it comes to things like religion. And as we discussed, we have some current things happening. There's always this fight, it seems like, in Indiana between religion and culture and politics. And yeah, I just feel like it's ground zero for a lot of the things that we've discussed. And so when I had the opportunity to watch your film, I had to take a few breaks because I was getting all in my feels and a little cry, which, fellow Hoosiers were like, don't cry, just suck it in. Suck it in. Like, don't be too overly emotional. But I think that this film just touches on a lot of things that really have hurt a lot of people for a long time. And I'm just so grateful for the work that you're doing. I was not aware of this work, but I feel like I didn't have a word for it, but apparently I've been deconstructing for a long time now. And I was also raised in the church, went like 2-3 times a week, was, member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, led choir. Like, I even went up to Olivet Nazarene thinking I might go up there. Like, there is a pretty big likelihood that if I had continued down that path, I might have ended in some type of ministry potentially. And the gayness was what got me out of it, right? Because once that was something that became very, very apparent. And I was like, pray the gay away, all the rest of the stuff. It doesn't seem right. And then, of course, all of the things, right? Like, you're not going to get into the kingdom of heaven. You're a sinner. You should just reject these sort of principles. And it just felt wrong, right? And I was like, I can't be the only one. There have to be more. Luckily for me, though, I had a very supportive grandfather. So he was actually the first one that I came out to. And I'll never forget. I was underneath my car changing the oil, as we do in Indiana.
Good.
Sign
That's
of a
great.
working class person, right?
I love it.
Yeah. And I had just like shooed my boyfriend in. And after I told my grandpa after that relationship was over and all that, I was like, yeah, I was like really nervous because I very much respected this man, loved him to death. He was my favorite person, probably still is my favorite person today, even though he's been gone for quite a few years. But I was so nervous to tell him. And I was just like, Grandpa, I have something to tell you. I'm gay. And he's like, yeah, I figured. I was like, what do you mean?
I think the beginning of the story, changing the oil, that was like a clue there. That was like the clue for what do they call it in the movie making, the foreshadowing. It's like, oh, bum, 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 big surprise. I'm just kidding.
No, but seriously, I think yeah, but I also come from a family, right? Being raised on a farm, it was very important to my dad and my grandfather that I learn how to take care of myself because they didn't want me to be taken advantage of. Now, mind you, still from Indiana, there's still a whole lot of things that they're like purposely not teaching me because they think I can't do it or it's a little bit too much. But I got a little bit more education than most. And I think it's significant to say that because I was not the only girl learning these types of things, especially farm kids. So if you're very rural and you don't have a lot of access to people and you're already told, just don't do it, right? Like, just don't have sex with anybody. We're not going to teach you anything about it. We're not going to teach you anything about your body. It's wrong. It's sinful. You have to save your body for your husband. And that's about it. And when you grow up in that type of system, even if it's not as hardcore Christian as some other people, it's a very different experience. And I think people that come from that kind of background, when you do find someone that you're like, oh, this is what like love, sexuality, intimacy, whatever, like this is what this is supposed to feel like.
Right.
And you never felt that way with your other boyfriend's husband or whatever. Sometimes it just takes that one person and you're like, oh, and then you feel like, but why is that sinful? Like, what is wrong with me? And why is that sinful? And why am I going to hell and all of the rest? And eventually you distance yourself from the church because every church that you enter where you're trying to maintain some type of faith, they reject you. And it seems like there's a whole host of sins that are acceptable, right? Like you can be a crack addict, heroin addict, prostitute, what have you. You could even enter the seminary and they will accept your sins and all of that, but you can't be gay.
Right. And I love how you use the air tags for anybody who might be listening on a line and not seeing the air tags there or the air quotes of sin, because what they call sin, I don't call sin. And we don't say homosexuality is a sin because it's not. But yes, I feel that that's very familiar. All right, we got to talk about your mug. Does the audience know about your mug? Is this the mug you use all the time, or is this a different one?
No, this is a different one, but I have a nonprofit called Color the Experience.
Nice.
And the headphones signify, a lot of autistic kids have sensory issues. So I picked that on purpose. And they like lots of colors. And short version is I wanted to, because I lived in Europe, I wanted to develop a like outdoor European festival type experience for these kids. And I thought, there's not a lot of places I can take my kids. I come from a musical background. My brother's a musician. And so we sat out on my porch, as Hoosiers do, and we get this idea. And he starts calling his buddies who are musicians. I start calling my buddies. And through a lot of asking, we got enough volunteers to put this thing on. And so we've done 2 thus far. It was really important to me that it was inclusive.
Yeah.
Largely because of some of these issues. And I also have a 6-year-old son that wears dresses. So would not be shocked if one day he is part of the trans community. And just to put it plainly, like I've experienced enough, I'm not having any of that noise. So I'm like, this is my opportunity to be truly inclusive. Everyone is welcome. I don't care, if you show up in camo, if you show up in a dress, if you like full blown drag, you're welcome here. So that's a little bit of the spiel for my nonprofit.
Very cool. Very nice. I love it. So that'll be number 3 coming up soon. You're gonna keep it going, I imagine.
I had to take a pause because I was running for Congress. And so I
Oh,
was
right.
like,
Yes. Oh, that
I
thing.
didn't,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that thing.
Thank you for
Right.
that, by the way. That's
Oh,
incredible. Yeah. Hearing your story and taking, fulfilling a need that just stepping up as a community member for your local Americans, but then Americans at large. So I'm saying thank you for me
well,
for
thank
that.
you.
It's a
I,
lot. It's
I,
a lot to do. I can't imagine it. So, tell
I
us more.
don't, I don't
I'm going
do
to switch the
thank
interview
you.
around now. Tell us
Okay.
more.
I am rarely on the opposite end of that, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, from a very deep red area. My parents are Republicans. Most of the people that I know are Republicans. Church on every corner, all of that. And a lot of the things going on in Indiana right now, cutting autism services,
Mm,
going after the LGBTQ plus community. Right now, we have a lieutenant governor that's going after the Muslim community. I had just had it. And so I had already been using my personal social media to just blast everything that I thought was useful for my area, hoping someone would watch or listen, trying to educate, trying to inform. And it got to a point where I was like, I took a look at some of the people running, and this is not a knock, right? Not a knock to people, but based upon what I had been following, I was like, this is the best we've got. Like, you really think you guys are going up against these very organized Republicans that are trying to strip everybody from their rights, like they're coming from it for everyone. And so I decided to leave my job, like literally at the deadline. I had stayed up for like 24 hours or something like that. My stomach was in knots. Here I have this
right.
kid that wears dresses, and I'm just like, ugh. And so finally, I was like, I'm just going to go. And so I contacted my boss, turned in my resignation because I worked for the U.S. Postal Service. So because of the Hatch Act, I couldn't run for any office, and decided to leave my job to run for office because essentially I thought, freedom and liberty is worth more. If we don't tackle this stuff now, we may not have an opportunity to live the way we want to live, all of us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's sort of the story. And now that I'm done, I was like, right, what am I going to do now? Because I still want to advocate, still want to help people. And the ultimate goal is to get as many progressives in office as possible. So I started interviewing congressional candidates and some state candidates for different cities that are part of the LGBTQ plus community, trans community in particular, and the disability community that are running, because I feel like no one's going to advocate for you like people that have overcome extreme adversity. So
Right.
trying to give them a nod. And I think all of this really sort of like the root is the same, right? Like I recognize how dangerous this extreme religious faction is in the US, and I'm trying to combat it. So I think my background in this deeply rooted Christianity and watching it morph over time and get more and more extreme and fewer people really like standing up to it. We've just come to this point in this country where I'm like, I didn't want it to be my generation. I would have liked to be doing other things, but unfortunately, here we are.
Here
So
we are. I'm
here
with
we
you.
are.
I'm with you. No, I appreciate the intersectionality within the marginalized community, and really just we need to think about intersectionality at all, but
Yeah.
the roof is on fire, so to speak, for of course the trans and non-binary community, but thinking about people with disabilities, when we talk about DEI and loss of funding in
Mhm.
America, that includes people with disabilities. We're
Yeah.
talking about, which of course very well, like not only ramps and elevator and lifts in certain places for people with not being able to walk and things like that, but also,
Mhm.
there's disabilities that you can't that aren't visible. that need to be considered and thought about, especially in public places, which I'm sure you know way more about. And being able to amplify those voices, I think, is really important to allow more people to be able to recognize these issues that most of us don't even think about. We have the luxury to not even think about. We take the stairs like nothing, like it's nothing. And so, yeah, I applaud you in that. We were talking earlier on a podcast, Josie and I, for the Cultural Shift tour that we do, in regards to a poem that reminds us that goes something along, well, they came to my town after this group of people, and that wasn't me, so I didn't do anything. And then this group of people, well, that wasn't me, and I didn't do anything. And it goes on and on and on. But then they came after me, and when I was ready to stand, there was no one left, And so it's
Yeah.
like, we have to be reminded about that. And, getting involved locally is where it starts. So, but yeah, but that's cool. I'm going to have to definitely check out more of that work because I'm interested to see who are these people that are running, where are they from? And we need more people to take a stand against big corporations and all the things. And of course, the religious institutions. That is why we're even here today and how we got connected, our intersection. But as you were saying, growing up in the Midwest and all throughout most parts of the United States, and the whole idea of being a Christian nation and what exactly does that mean? And it takes on different levels. And I would say there's truth and untruth in that statement. I would say that we're not a Christian nation. We may have been an implied Christian principles into some of our writing, but we all know, I would think you and I know that the founding fathers made it very clear in separation of church and state and the importance of that. And they had each their own beliefs, again, which most, were Christian, but that they were then to that end very clear on the separation. So, these myths that become real because you say something enough times, it becomes real, puts us all in a position where we're pawns. So if you've seen 1946 or not, and some of the ways and some of the things that I like to do as far as the work that I do is creating conversations and dialogue that is non-threatening, that's journalistic, that's academic, that's relational. So we can hopefully engage with one another instead of making a film or a book or writing that's just like, look at what they did to me and we're going to get our revenge, and preaching within that circle, that echo chamber that doesn't really create real change or shift. And so my simplest thing when people are like, what is your hope when people watch the movie? Well, I would love it if everybody changed their mind and understood that being gay is not a sin, and we get to this place where we don't even have to talk about it. But we know we're not going to change everybody's mind. So at the very least, I would encourage people to engage with it. And I hope that it gets us to think of simple things like, for one, the Bible wasn't written in English, and people had impact in the way that it was translated. And so engaging with a little bit more humility. And then to that end, before you use the Bible as a weapon against somebody else, just have a think, just take a step back. And if we can do just even those simple things, then where can the conversation go around not only LGBTQ, but as you were saying, what we see with how religion plays into our laws in the land, whether you're Christian or not, this impacts you. And it's only a matter of time before the Bible is turned around and used against you. And so we need to be looking at this stuff as Americans, as humans around the world, as this doesn't just impact America, on how people are using ancient text for personal gain, political and identity politics, or for good, because it can be used for good too. So, you saw the film. We don't condemn anyone's beliefs. This isn't an attack on God or the Bible or anyone's beliefs. It's, again, just a journalistic, relational, academic approach to a real mistake that had real consequences. And we call it a mistake because that's what the data shows, pulled from the archives at Yale University, which is also in the film. And then in Kathy's book that was just released, which I'm going to plug, of course, Forging a Sacred Weapon. Absolutely. Forging a Sacred Weapon, how a 1946 mistranslation created or led to anti-gay theology. And so that just came out, and it's a fascinating story. But 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 to your end, as far as like with Kathy's book, just mentioning that and creating and leading to anti-gay theology, you talking about growing up in the church and hearing these themes and these rhetorics on gay people and how bad they are and they're sinners and there's this and that. Our argument with the film and the mistranslation, which again is a mistranslation according to the data, shows an amplification of rhetoric toward the LGBTQ communities in the 70s, after in 1973, when the American Psychiatric Association declassified homosexuals from being mentally ill and deemed us well in society. That's where we see the shift, taking it into a moral issue, where prior the church always handled it as a medical issue. And then we see an escalation of things. Of course, in the 80s, the AIDS crisis didn't really help with any of, now the pastors are able to say, look, it says it right here in black and white, you're the problem. And then that leads to conversion therapy, and it just became a mess where it's all in the film with the whole mistranslation and stuff like that, but it became easy to weaponize. It became easy to call out the boogeyman, there's so many layers to it, really. But again, as we say at the beginning of the film, I believe the people who are oppressing us the most, they're our loved ones. They're our parents, our teachers, our friends. And I believe they're victims of bad theology just like we are. This is an institution and empire issue, as opposed to people who use the Bible for wisdom, for guidance, for community, and all the things that the church does and what it's supposed to do. So anyway, I don't want to bring on church here or anything, but
no, I think it's good though. And, I'm like nodding like preach, because, I'll whip that Bible out and get some of those verses, because going to church that much, you remember things, even if you remove yourself, like if you were raised that way and ingrained that way, you remember that stuff. And it doesn't take much for you to go back and flip through a few chapters. And, I always tell people, slap people with the Bible verse if they deserve it, right? So, not to be a mean person, but you can't have it both ways. And if you are going to use the Bible as a weapon, be prepared for someone that is equally as knowledgeable as you to turn that and use it for good. And I've been a big fan of Monty Madar doing that kind of thing. And there's a few other content creators also doing that. And there definitely is this through line, especially in the Midwest, where it's like, they always ask us, right? Like, what radicalized you? And we're like, Jesus. Like, we were the generation that we were wearing the "What Would Jesus Do" bracelets. Like, we had the WWJD bracelets, and they beat that into our brains. And now we're using that information for good. And they're like, hold on, pump the brakes. Like, that's not what we meant. And we're like, but that's what you said. And this is what Jesus said. And so now we're adults. We're raising our children. We see all the devastation across the world, but especially in the U.S., and seeing, those words from Jesus weaponized against the least of these. And I'm just one that's having none of it. And so part of my advocacy is to bring that to the table, to, encourage people that have those skills, have that skill set, to at least make people question. Like, I always tell people, question everything. If you have a question, ask me. If I don't know, I will find someone else that has the answer. We will keep asking people until you get the answer to your question, because that's important.
Yeah. And I always say, especially when I'm in churches, which I find myself in often with the film, or, wherever it is that I'm at, if you're in a space where you can't ask questions, then you're probably in the wrong space and you need to leave. Because then you're probably in a cult, or you're in some power structure thing that doesn't sound healthy. And especially if the leader, you can't question the leader, but in any sense, you should be able to have healthy vulnerability within your communities and feel safe to ask questions without, being harmed or ridiculed or any of that stuff. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm leaning toward as far as the advocacy work. When did it become okay for grown men and women, because there's some women, let's admit it, that do it too, that just say the most horrible things to each other. And now, I guess we used to whisper things, people, whatever, behind people's backs a little bit, like, but just right to your face, like, let alone a peaceful transfer of power. So let's not even talk about that. But when did this behavior become okay? Like, I'm in the UK right now, right? And
Yeah.
I watch some parliament things that are going on, and they'll give, the prime minister hell, and then he'll be like, "Thank you, Jane, for, ripping my ass apart." Like, he doesn't say it like that, of course, but you know what I mean? And then with the accent, but it was like, "But, let me tell you." And then he just answers the question. And I was like, why can't we have this? We can't have nice things anymore, I guess.
Well, in the States, especially where we're from, a couple things we don't talk about: religion and politics. And we need to start, because in Europe, it has always been acceptable. It's been encouraged, right? Like, there are deep roots to these things and why they don't want us to do certain things. They don't want us to ask questions. They don't want us to challenge authority. And I think right now they've activated several generations, really. Anybody 50 and under, I would say, over here, is really starting to ponder, really starting to question things, because they're like, hold on a second.
Yeah.
So I was raised in the church, and it doesn't matter what political affiliation you have, right? But there are some bedrock issues that people are questioning. And they're like, raping people, pedophilia, like all these sorts of things are bad. We were taught they were bad. And yet the people that we're supposed to respect, not always,
Seem to be
but
getting away with it.
a lot of the time, right? Like, we keep seeing this through line of like, do as I say, not as I do. But the do as I say, not as I do stuff is really, really horrible. And
Really
then
bad. Yeah.
you see people at the highest tiers of government either walking around issues, avoiding it altogether, like the Epstein files, for example. It's like, how do you sleep at night, flip open your Bible? Like, realistically, what are
Yeah.
you doing? And I think a lot more people, like these politicians, are really they're gonna have some extreme opposition, because the American public now are like, there's some things that you can tell us, but there's a whole slew of things that we're like, like,
Yeah, I hope so.
your gaslighting is not working.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, again, we need more strong voices to stand up. We need more conversations like the ones that you're starting, more
Yeah.
people to start more conversations or join more conversations. Or
Mm-hmm.
if you don't feel so comfortable to be on camera, and you can share this conversation with
Yeah.
10 people, and so those small little acts will help make a difference. And again, as we were talking about the things that you do and have done to get to where you are, join the local level, get involved with your local community, be a voice, like show up to whether it's a school PTS. I don't have kids, so
PTA.
yeah, PTA, right.
But
I
that's
knew it
all
was
right.
something like that. What was that?
I was said,
I
that's
have,
all right. My kids aren't
yeah.
that level. Yeah, I had three children that were in ABA, applied behavioral analysis for kids with autism, and now two of them are home with me for the summer because they're done. They'll be transitioning into public school, and one is still in. So yeah, we're not to the PTA area yet, but I guarantee you they see me coming. They're just like, oh,
They
that one.
see, yeah, they totally are like, uh-oh, right, you're on some watch list somewhere. That's great. But yeah, there are other ways to get involved. And of course, I'm just giving an example, but that'll be fun. You'll have to fill me in on on all the little behind the scenes of what's going on in the PTA. I don't know.
Well, I just
So,
think that, right? Like you said, there's a lot of different ways that you can say something, but I would say to people, always challenge authority. Like that, if that's the thing they're telling you not to do, do that thing. Like if you're somewhere, anywhere, and something is said that you're like, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't make me feel good. I don't think that's like a nice thing to say. Say something. Like, don't
yeah,
just let them go with it. And even if it's just very minimal, it can be something like, like, can we not? Or I don't think that's nice. You don't have to be like seriously confrontational if you're uncomfortable with that, but just say something.
right. Otherwise, even if it is small, it's them just still chipping away and kind of testing to see our limit,
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
only going to keep getting worse. But yeah, I agree with you. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to challenge authority. Obviously, we're saying things within the law, but of course there are other ways
Yeah.
to break the law that are, like even just some
Right.
protesting that we see going on right now, and it's like people are,
Like Delaney
being
Hall.
wrongly arrested, and it's just like, where do you draw the line? Because we of course want to exercise our freedom of protest, our freedom of speech,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so yeah, but of course we encourage everyone to do it within
Yeah.
the limits. Yeah.
What's that look like for you in the UK? I always ask my friends who are outside of this, the perspective, because the news is different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just immersing myself more into the activism scene here.
Mm-hmm.
And Josie Perez, who's the co-host of the Culture Shift Tour, our podcast with 1946,
Yeah.
which is on YouTube and Apple and Spotify, all the channels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She works in higher education, and it's EDI here. I think it's equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's her focus within higher education. And then she's also on the board of some organizations here like UK Black Pride. She was on the board of Kaleidoscope, which works between the Commonwealth and Africa
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for LGBTQ rights. And so, yeah, this year I've been able to meet some people within the community and seeing how there's a lot of similarities as far as conversion practices
Mm.
not being taken seriously, conversion bans to ban these practices, and trans escalation on trans and non-binary people, and laws being rewritten
Mm-hmm.
to then exclude and harm that community. So
Mm-hmm.
similar to what we're seeing in the US, a push on right-wing politics and
Mm-hmm.
more Britain first.
Yeah.
So a lot of similarities, but we're starting to see that all throughout Europe too and around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But then to
Mm-hmm.
that end, as you were saying with the younger people, I mean, it's a mix because younger people are mixed into some of this brainwashing, which I would call whitewashing. I don't know if that's
Mm-hmm.
appropriate, but it's like
Mm.
they're being manipulated and they're
Yeah.
being used then.
But
And
this is where teaching history is important, right?
exactly. And that's why, if you're in a community where they're banning books, you have to ask yourself why and who benefits
Yeah.
from that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so, but my point on landing on hope is I do see the other side of it, where there are people, or even I've met young people in the States who voted for Trump, who've
Sure.
actually said to me, I, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. Like, I really can't believe, like, young 20-year-old men, who have realized that they were manipulated and
But at
used
least they're
by.
saying it.
Exactly. And so, this young man is obviously, they're all intelligent, I'm sure, to a certain degree, but
Sure.
for him
Mm-hmm.
to have that emotional intelligence to be able to pull away from his friend group who are still believing that, women should not have autonomy over their bodies and all of
Mm-hmm.
it, and, are not there for pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
only for the
Mm-hmm.
man's pleasure, whatever, all the different things that are going on in
Sure.
these groups that I keep hearing about, so
Mm-hmm.
that it's nice, and it was encouraging to see, that people can change, people can recognize that, oh, maybe I was being used in a sense. And so again,
Mm-hmm.
my whole MO and what the movie does and what we want to do with the extension of our impact campaign is just provide people with the data, with good
Yeah.
information, with
Yeah.
objectives and perspectives that they can then, we're not telling people how to think, how to vote, what to feel, really. We just want to provide good information so you can then get informed and make your own decisions and want to do your
Mm-hmm.
own research and want to, read these authors and look at these, and then if you want to bring in who you've read, let's talk about it, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
how can we find common ground within these ideas and get people to recognize the difference between free speech and free think and an institutional, like why are some people banning certain things and trying to mold things in a certain way? There's got to be an agenda behind it. So again, yeah, asking questions, all the things that you and I keep talking about, I think, during
Mm-hmm.
this call. So
And I will say this. I learned this on my campaign, but I think I'm just this way too because of personal experiences. Something different happens to a person when you can see a person in the flesh and have that conversation and see that they are unafraid. Now, I'm not saying completely unafraid, because there's some spaces that I've been in that, yeah, like the hair on the back of my neck kind of sticks up, but I still know that it's necessary. And the more and more we put ourselves in those type of spaces, and especially trying and to make like coalitions with like straight white lumberjack looking men, that we can have these conversations and then send them out into their communities, and then they can be the ones to say, hey, look, man, like that's actually not cool. Like I read this book or watched this movie, and like you should too, because all this stuff that these women are doing, or these people are doing, like either they took the time to come and talk to us and they're trying to do it for a good reason, and it seems like it's coming from a good place. Like maybe we should listen. The more and more we do that, I think the more and more effective we will be.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Showing up at the corner, the hate preachers with their hate signs, yelling vulgar things in the street, that doesn't work. Just so for any street preachers out there who might be listening to this show,
Mm.
that doesn't work. And so yeah, I encourage anyone to just have older conversations. And you said it, when you're in person, so we did a road trip around America in
Mm-hmm.
2024. We took 32 days and put 6 people in an RV and went
Mm-hmm.
around to 15 cities highly impacted by extremist ideology, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
means, like, so
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-hmm.
using the Bible as a weapon,
Yeah.
and showed the film and talked about in how Jerry Falwell Sr. and Paul Ryrick were the 2 people that first introduce how the Christians needed to vote, and that's when the Catholics and the Christians started to
Mm-hmm.
unite. And
Mm-hmm.
their 2 targets were abortion and LGBTQ issues. And finding
Mm-hmm.
those single ticket issues to unite the church and unite the voters to vote Republican. And so we were teaching that history on the road. And we
Mm-hmm.
met so many people along the way, and some people who didn't want to come to the film or think LGBTQ was being a sin. We
Yeah.
even broke down twice on the road where, we're encountering people who are running into our queer crew with some
Mm.
trans people and, people of color and gays and
Mm-hmm.
lesbians. And everyone was super nice. People were like,
Mm-hmm.
it's closing time, but my mama told me to help people in
Yeah.
need, and so I'm gonna help you, And so we found that all along the way. We stayed in people's homes that had never had any gay or trans friends, and now
Mm.
all of a sudden they're feeding us, and we're staying in their home overnight, And so
Mm-hmm.
we all felt safe, and we all felt fine, and we all felt welcomed, and they let um, our group have a platform to be able to share our story, and then the
Mm-hmm.
history too. It was a,
Yeah.
but then we heard from people as well. So it was just amazing. It was
Yeah.
amazing that how, again, when you just get into the mix of it, I mean, social media has done wonderful, wonderful things to connect us, but it
Yeah.
also does terrible things where people are then hiding behind a screen and just saying the most horrific things.
Yeah.
And it's unnecessary. And so I think that plays a little bit into the immaturity that we see, but mostly it's the candidates who started it. And mostly I would say it's
Mm.
and the like who have allowed it. And then
Mm-hmm.
people are like, oh, I want to be like him. I want to be able to, you know, and it's like, no, no.
Well,
And to that end, really quickly, I do want to say too, one of the
yeah.
things we're working on is making sure, we're including men in the conversation and making sure
Mm-hmm.
that they're heard as much. And that's what DEI is about. It is about strength in our differences, and men need to be able to be vulnerable, to cry, to know what it really means to be a provider. Especially in today's world, because we know patriarchy doesn't work for men as much as it doesn't work for women. Anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead. I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, I was going to say that too. And I was just going to mention that because I know we talked about this off camera, but I tried again at a church, my local church, and then the preacher decided to give 2 sermons. And I'm pretty sure it was because I was being more vocal online.
Mm,
And he picked the LGBTQ plus community and abortion. And I ended up leaving and deciding, you know what? I'm done. Like I've seen enough in my life. Not trying to tell someone how to believe, how to think, or whatever, but I've seen that happen so many times, and this is why your movie is so impactful, right? Because if we can get to these people and then show them the evidence and say, listen, you were lied to. Like, you were purposely exploited. And remember when God, through his own words, was saying that he is love, and you're actually teaching hate, and other people have encouraged you to teach hate. So you're like purposely denying others, like other people of faith, to have access to God and Jesus and the church. And that is going against Jesus' teachings.
Very much so. Yep. Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was just one thing that I was like, again? I
Yeah.
guess I'm always that one, right? Because I'll be sitting there taking notes and, studiously, because I want to make sure that I'm right. And it'd been a while since I was in the church. And, I think all of us gays, we hit this point where we're like, we're putting that Bible away. Like, it's hurtful and it's harmed us. And even if originally there was some comfort to it, because we can't constantly fight ourselves, we have to make a choice at some point. And I've seen a lot of people of faith that were raised in the church that have even gone through things like conversion therapy. There's all of this self-hatred and harm. And if you were truly supposed to be like walking in God's way, you don't want people to feel that way. That is the antithesis of what Jesus was about. Like, Jesus was flipping tables in the temple. So, like, let's not be hypocrites here. Let's at least be open-minded enough to sit down like he would at a
Yeah.
table and have a discussion with people.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Yeah, we have a lot of work to do, I'll tell you.
I
But
know.
it's also good work. It's hopeful work, like people are, and like you said, there are a lot of people who are waking up to it, and you said it yourself with deconstruction, and that is, I guess, a new term which I had to learn to through the TikTok because I'm almost
Mm-hmm.
50. Can you believe it? And I was like, wow, how did that happen? And I learned TikTok in my mid 40s, so it
Mm-hmm.
was around early COVID. It's like, well, I guess I'm gonna do this. But yeah, there were
I'm the
so
same.
many.
I didn't know how to do it either. And then I had these nonprofits and stuff and started my social media originally with the intention to like promote my nonprofits and just get it out there. And then I couldn't look away from all the damage that was happening. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be
Yeah,
doing political content.
there you go. No, that's great. Yeah, and then all of the people who were doing it well before the two of us, I was just
Yeah.
like, wow, this is incredible, and so now it's like become this thing, but it's also good that more people are using their voice and
Mm-hmm.
speaking out against the institution or the empire or whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
this thing that wants to control us and not allow us to be our own free thinkers. So
Right.
I'll
Well,
keep doing the work.
you should. And I hope that we encourage more people to do the work. And I know that you've got to go. So I just want to wrap this up. I ask everybody this
Yeah.
question: who is Rocky?
Well, I am a Sagittarius, which means I'm happy-go-lucky. I'm all the things that they say, whether you believe in astrology or not. It's entertainment for you. I fly by the seat of my pants, but I'm also to that end the things that I really admire the most, which is loyalty, honesty, sense of humor, and then that vulnerability amongst friends that you want in that chosen family type situation. I think I try to encompass that in all that I do, whether, you're a stranger or not, like, and in the work to try to just find joy and gratitude in all of those things. And so I think, that's just, I'm just have this weird kind of skip through life, happy go lucky thing that I've been able to channel into an amazing reality. So I don't know. I don't really know who I am. I'm just know that I've been very fortunate and been able to turn that around into continuing on to live the best life that I can in this one life that we get.
Well, from what I got from you, I would say that you're a good human. And I like to have good humans on this podcast. So any way that I can help you, you let me
Thank you.
know. Anybody else that you think might want to come on here and tell their story, give them my phone number. But thank you so
I
much for
will.
coming. I very much
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I've got people in mind for sure. And this isn't goodbye. This is hello. And I can't wait to do it again. And we'll be talking more offline. So thank you.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for coming. We'll see you later.
All right. Ciao.
We are at a pivotal point in American history. We do not have the luxury to remain silent. Programs are disappearing every day. We hope that this podcast raises awareness and sparks a sense of advocacy in you. We all can make a difference. The important thing is to start. See you next time.